So yeah, this process is very humbling. I can see why they call that energy mania. I didn't feel manic, but I was creating a lot. And that trajectory came to an end. And that's part of the thing. I don't know who I am. I've created things that are so-called good and so-called bad, and I felt an element of a lot of karma of this energy ending the creative process. And when I was at work and in that training, when I introduced myself, I said, I'm from planet Earth most of the time. So I was being playful and silly. And then we did the sharing thing, and it almost feels like showing myself makes it fall apart too. Showing my true self. It's not safe to be my true creative self that is without this past. So then the self comes back online. And I could say all those things, but at the end of it all, it seems like it was time for that to happen. So I could say this went wrong or that went wrong, but it just seems like these last few years, it happens every 6.5 to 9 months or 8.5 months. But earlier this year, I did have another mini event shortly after, so I do need to be aware of that. And it makes me wonder if right now is a good time to do that business course, because it's supposed to be a mental health advocate, but as soon as I feel strong and I'm advocating, things fall apart, so I don't know if that's right. Today, it entered my mind to go to the island for a month. I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't know what to do. Sometimes I don't feel like it's safe to be around people because I really do change based on who I'm around. Obviously, because people interact, so I don't know. I can't really predict how I'm going to be. And the conversation and the theme of what things are about changes depending on who's around, so I don't know. I feel like, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, I feel like the things I predicted in terms of walking into a context that's not right for me has happened. But at the same time, it possibly could have happened any which way because it's time. So I'll probably say a lot of different possibilities now, but at the same time, it's just time. Everything really does respond to the human brain, but then it's not in isolation, so that's what makes these more challenging, lower energy times really hard, because one can't really do anything about it. One needs to go through it. And the doing something about it creates a lot of the chaos about what it is and then what needs to be done. And I've talked at length about all of that. And even though this has happened, I still feel a lot of what I said to be true, but then it doesn't change. It doesn't prevent it. doesn't prevent it. So I might have to be careful about creating something that is too far into being my future self, or a self that I can't be here. I don't even know if that is true. I really don't know. I think something I was thinking about this morning is I came to this earth with a lot of bad karma. I don't think I was a very nice child. And I can see why, though. I can see some things that I don't really want to talk about right now, but it's not an excuse. It's just when I fall into these lower states of consciousness and I'm seeing all that happened and my brain is just swirling like I've been hit in the head. There's a lot of awfulness, and then it's hard to be with the good that has been there too. And then that's when I'm like, well, which version am I? And I don't think I'm any of these, yet I'm all of them at the same time and never, and it's really confusing, and I don't know how to flower. I don't know how to create those preconditions for that to happen. I don't think it's up to me. There's some other greater force at play, or greater power, which is something that's within us. It's not separate from us. I realize that there's no great ruler. The great ruler is within us, and when we each change the rules individually, that brings about a different world. Blah, blah, blah. Yet, I can't do it. The theme of I can't help people. And when I was at work, I was talking to someone, and I felt such sadness in their heart, like so much sadness, and I felt like I just wish I could help this person. And I saw all the factors, and it just broke my heart. And that was another thing that caused this fall. Yet again, I could say it was time. But it seems like when it's the time for the fall, there'll be things really shown to me, and I guess there's somewhat of a theme of seeing how we've been brought up creates a lot of this, and nobody tries to do it intentionally. It's just such a chaotic, complex mess of the infinite quantum flux of holons and holographic crap. And then it's like, it's inescapable in its life. And that's the thing, wanting to escape and feeling like death is the only way out, and then realizing that one really does love all these beings around oneself and wouldn't want to cause that kind of pain. And then there's the pain of existence. It just keeps shifting. There's nothing for the brain to cling on to. No identity, that's the thing. But then it seems that the brain puts itself together enough to go back about the existence we've all co-created for each of us to exist in. I don't know if it was a good idea to go to that cognitive remediation conference. It was really sad. Because if I get through this, it'll kind of show the process of, even though being on micronutrients, my brain slowed down majorly, and I was talking about that along the way. It sped up, and when it speeds up, it's in a different dimension, and then it slows down, and the slowdown, it's like putting the brakes on so fast that putting stop to that so fast that everything keeps going that's in the container. So all this debris gets thrown around in chaos, and one has to process it in order to go backwards. Usually my mind is pretty empty, but there's so many different memories and associations, and it's mind-boggling, and everything around oneself leads to some association of the past. But yesterday I remember having a thought. It's thought. It's not happening now. It's thought. It's thought. It's memory. And I learned more about the process. It seems like when I was processing stuff, there was either pain, different energies moving in the body, different places, the whole body, the whole energy field, like the pain of anxiety without the word anxiety. And then after the pain would go, then there were stories or thoughts, or one could say very subtle so-called hallucinations and delusions, in that they weren't happening now. If I would have said them out loud, people would have been like, what are you talking about? But they weren't so delusional. They seemed like, yeah, these were things from the past. Didn't seem like delusion. It seemed like processing the past. In January, it felt like processing trauma. This felt like processing trauma, then processing the past. It is the past. It has nothing to do with what's happening now. But it was there and really interfering with functioning, because it's so in the foreground that my brain can't be attentive to what is there now. And then I'm sitting there like kind of a zombie, as opposed to moving around, being happy, interacting with people, and being able to create a different scenario. I'm creating a scenario where people are like, oh, here, I made dinner, do you want some? Like, just not contributing. And that's okay, but maybe processing that stuff is contributing. And there was a lot of fear of death, and I understand that's not an option unless it happens. And there's this feeling like I might end my life sometimes, but when I take a Seroquel, it's mercy. I want to sleep this off. It's like a bad dream. Even talking about this now, I can feel pressure in my head. Last night I felt like my brain was reorganizing. Like I felt this energy spinning in my head. That's the first time I've felt that. This time around at least, because the rest of the time it was energy in my body or these stories of the past and things. It was a lot. And it was nice because 2 days ago it let up for half the afternoon and the evening, and then it was there the next day, but then it let up at night. Today it hasn't really been there so much. I had a little bit of so-called maybe anxiety when I first started talking to myself. And this morning when I woke up, I felt some kind of like menthol feeling in my arms. But it hasn't really translated into stories. And, oh, I better stop.